And you've just heard Boyfriend Devoted by the Felt Tips from the album Living and Growing. And I'm delighted to be joined by the band now. Hello, tell us who is there, who is with us.
Hello, I'm Andrew from the Felt Tips, and we'll let everyone else say hello.
Hello, I'm Miguel from the Felt Tips.
And now it's a Mexican standoff about who's going to speak next. Kevin.
Hey, I'm Neil. I play bass for Felt Tips.
Excellent.
I'm Kevin. I play drums for the Felt Tips.
Fantastic. And before we talk about the album, I wonder if you can give us a potted history of the band, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Well, maybe to start with, me and Neil came from Aberdeen, but we were living in Glasgow, and I'd always liked the thought of living in Glasgow to set up a band, and I'd tried, but it hadn't really got anywhere. And then Miguel was from, he'd lived in Scotland before, but he arrived in Glasgow for the second time he stayed in Scotland, and he found an old advert that I'd left in one of the record shops. So it was more than a year old, and he responded to it, and I said, I'm not looking to form a band anymore, because I was starting to think about doing solo stuff. But Miguel was pretty insistent, and I'm glad he was, because agreed to meet up with him, and everything clicked. And then Neil quickly, he heard what we were doing and liked it. He joined, and we had a couple of drummers for a couple of years, and as we played and started to do gigs in Glasgow and make ourselves known. But eventually we got our long-term drummer Kev, and that made the full quartet. And we've played in Glasgow, we've done 2 albums, we've played in the rest of the UK, we played in Europe over the years. Then around 2013 or so, after we released our second album, we had a bit of a hiatus, busy lives. Miguel lives in London now, but we never gave up on the hope that we'd do something again. And more recently, we've had our album reissued, our debut album reissued, and that's given us a new lease of life, and we'll be playing a couple of gigs in November as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I was going to ask you about playing live. That's great to hear. So you've mentioned that Miguel saw your note in a record shop, and that kind of dates things in itself, that whole way of doing things. But what time are we talking? When did you get together?
Yeah, good question. That was
2005.
Yeah, well done, Miguel.
It must have been October 2005 when I moved to Glasgow. I was living in the Highlands in Elgin at the time, and then moved to Glasgow. And like 1 or 2 weeks after, I saw Andrew's note looking for people. Yeah, so it's been a while now.
So almost 20 years to the day, almost October. That's
yeah.
It. And
I never even noticed that. Happy birthday, guys.
Absolutely. And what was it, I asked you, Neil, what was it that made you want to get involved with this band?
Yeah, so Andrew had played in a couple of previous bands. So Rubber Ring was one, Orange Peel was another one. I thought they were pretty good. But his songwriting just went up a level with the songs he was starting to do with Miguel, and my jaw just dropped, and I thought, I want in on this. I want some of the action, so I joined on bass, and it was the combination of Andrew's songwriting, his lyrics, his words, his sort of storytelling within the songs was amazing, and that combined with Miguel's style of guitar. Miguel probably mentioned this, but he started learning guitar when he grew up in Spain, a sort of flamenco style, and you can definitely hear that. But just the intricacy of Miguel's guitar parts, think Johnny Marr, think Bernard Butler, just really intricate, not what you'd expect, very technical. And yeah, I was just so happy to join.
And Kevin, when you got involved, in terms of songs, were they kind of almost there and you had to kind of learn them, for want of a better word?
Yeah, there was a few. I came along just when they just recorded the Life Skills singles, a 7-inch single out on the Cloudberry Records. it just been recorded by another drummer. And so, yeah, I had to learn that and some of the other songs. But then I think there was some songs already written, and so I was kind of part of creating them, you know, bringing them to life along with the others by this point. So yeah, by the time I joined, and that kind of the way I joined kind of dates it as well. I hadn't done anything for quite a while, and I was just looking. I'd started looking in MySpace, as it was at the time, because you could put in locations. I thought, I wonder what bands are doing stuff in Glasgow just now. I was still working in a rehearsal and recording studio a few shifts a week just to keep my hand in. So I was still involved, sort of, with the music scene in Glasgow, but obviously all different types of bands coming through the doors of the studio. But when I started to look at myself, you know, what was sort of happening, not really looking to get involved, certainly not looking to play drums in a band. I was kind of fed up. I'm not really a sort of drummer. I can play them, but I don't really speak the language, so to speak. I don't even know what some of the bits are on drums, for instance, but I seem to be okay at keep my beat and playing along and whatnot. And I just inquired, says, "Oh, yeah, any gigs coming up, felt tips?" And Andrew replied saying, "No, we don't, sorry." And I was like, "Oh, that's a shame, because we don't have a drummer." I says, "Oh, that's a shame, let me know if you get one." And then Miguel, being a bit more sort of forthright, just randomly out of the blue, because he had no idea I could play the drums, happened to just say, are you a drummer? So I don't know what made him say that, but I kind of like, oh, I don't want to lie. So I says, "Well, yeah, I can play the drums." And so I kind of agreed to help out for a little bit, you know, and then, you know, whatever, what was that? That must have been about 2009, maybe 2008, 2009. So all these years later, and I wasn't from the same sort of musical background as these guys, you know. I had never even heard the term sort of indie pop, for example. But I got involved. I wasn't looking for an indie pop, but I just heard this band on MySpace. I thought, these songs are brilliant. These are really good. And I really want to see them. And there was a few other bands that I liked at the time, and they didn't sound like Felt Tips or anything, but they were just bands doing good songs. So I thought, this is a travesty, this band aren't able to play live. So I agreed to help out short term, and then it just became a fixture because we were just having so much fun together.
I like that. The reluctant drummer.
Yes. You usually get two types: the reluctant drummer, because you can't find a drummer anywhere, or the drummer who, you know, knows all about them and stuff. I'm
interested, Miguel, how you thought he was a drummer. What is that about Kevin? You thought, I think there's a drummer in there.
He looked like a drummer to me. I don't know.
Oh, dear. How did you know he's a drummer? Because he looked like one. Oh, that's brilliant.
I don't know what to think about
that. So this is a reissue of your debut album, as you said, Andrew. Why are you doing that, and why now?
It's a good story as well. There's a guy called Simon in London who's got a label called Unspun Heroes. And the concept behind it is that he releases records that he loved in the past, but were never released in vinyl, and perhaps were really good albums that might not have been appreciated as much as he thinks they should have been. And so he'd done a write-up, a retrospective review of Living and Growing, our debut album. And we saw this, and things kind of made sense. Well, if he's writing about us, maybe he'd like to release us. So we got in touch, and he was dead up for it. And he's done a really great job. I mean, it's we'd released it on CD before, which on a Peruvian label, and it was lovely. But this is something else. It's in vinyl with all the background stories to the songs, all the lyrics, photos, and and some other additional stuff that Simon puts together, and it's a lovely package.
It's such an interesting thing as well. There's so many bands or great albums, I should say, from the 90s and 90s in particular, that just would never even consider doing it on vinyl because it just kind of had fallen out of fashion so much.
Yeah, we released our second album on vinyl because it was always kept alive in the indie pop scene, isn't it, guys?
Yeah. Also, our second single, Life Scales, third single, sorry, that was on vinyl, was 7 inches. Yeah.
Yeah, I often think of exactly
Yeah,
there
so
were 7-inch singles and stuff coming out, but and you could still get. But I was thinking a lot of indie bands in particular. You know, the kind of prohibitive costs and even where you would get it done. It was a difficult question.
no, you're definitely right, and it's definitely something that's in vogue just now. But we're happy to. It does make it a more special thing. Vinyl seems to be going to last forever, doesn't it?
Well, it seems that way. Yeah. How were you originally released on a Peruvian label? That sounds like an interesting story.
Anyone want to tell that story?
Well, I think again, going as Kev mentioned earlier, MySpace was quite important at the time for bands. There was no. I mean, as I remember, it was probably the first social media or as big as that. It became very popular for music. Any band in anywhere in the world could be listened in many other places, which before was quite difficult.
Yeah.
Roque Ruiz, who is the owner of Cloudberry Records, used to spend hours just navigating the MySpace and found us, and he really liked us. Got in touch. We ended up releasing a couple of singles with Cloudberry Records, and then he's also in. He's Peruvian. He's also in another label called Plastilina Records. So he suggested us to release the first record. So it was kind of natural thing from Cloudberry to Plastilina.
The songs for me stand up really well. I've been listening to the album for the last few days, and as I mentioned before we started recording, it's very much my kind of thing. So I maybe would say that. But what's it like for you guys to revisit these songs, Neil? You know, you were saying how much you enjoyed Andrew's lyrics. They still hold up as strong for you today?
Yeah, very much so. As we've got older, we sort of the stories told in the songs do kind of evoke different sort of thoughts and emotions. I think now we're a wee bit older. I think what happened with the release this time around on vinyl was that it was remastered for the vinyl release. So we all gathered together and listened to the remastered version of the songs, and they just sounded amazing on vinyl. And it's an album I hadn't listened to for a while, but playing it again, playing it back, it just brought back so many memories, and the album just does still hold up really well. There's not a song that isn't great on that album, I have to say. We've been rehearsing again for gigs, so we've had to revisit the songs and actually playing the songs again rather than just listening to them. So it's been a real journey of discovering the songs and then, to be honest, trying to learn how to play them again, which has been tricky at points. But that's us back up to speed, really, where we were before we went into the studio first time around, ready for these 2 gigs next month. And yeah, we can't wait. So yeah, to answer your question, it's been great to rediscover the songs, and they do very much hold up.
And when the idea of the album came out, did you always know that you were going to reform to play live, or is that just a result of re-engaging with the music?
Can anyone remember? Did we think we were going to play live straight away?
Well, I think the Simons
open to. When we realised that it was happening, I think we must have known. I certainly had. I thought, well, we're definitely going to sort of play. I mean, we never really officially sort of broke up. We just kind of went into a permanent hiatus. You know, people would ask us, "Oh, are you still doing?" They would ask us if we were still doing stuff, and I'd say, "No, not really." But if somebody says, "Have you broke up?" I would still find myself saying, "Well, no, not really."
I think aware of that. Was that something that you kind of all thought, yeah, it's still there, we just haven't got round to it yet?
Yeah, we've never really thought that we've split up. We're not active. It's just, life stands in the way of making new music sometimes, and that's really what happened. I think the Simons releases on Unspun Heroes, a lot of the bands aren't together anymore, so it's bands who've made brilliant albums, not released on vinyl, then they're put out again. I think most of those bands aren't together anymore, so they can't play live. So I think part of it was, Simon was so keen that we're still active, we're still together. Why not play the album live? So that's partly why we've done it, I think.
And Miguel, I think it was Neil mentioned the kind of style of guitar that you play, and a couple of perhaps the influences on your guitar playing, like Johnny Marr, etc. Can you talk a bit more about influences on the band? Because there's the Smiths I mentioned, and I think Bell and Sebastian in your press release, but there's others that I can think of. Is there others for you?
Yeah, obviously those are the two that most people mention, and maybe we have those in common. I grew up in Spain. As a teenager, I was probably my very first. The band I was a big fan of was Suede when they came out. And I think Bernard Baller was really my first guitar hero, I would say. I discovered the Smiths through them, I guess. Johnny Marr is another big influence for me. And then, I guess because I learned to play classical guitar, also flamenco, that kind of technically had some sort of influence, probably more than I realized, because apart from certain classics of flamenco or classical guitar, it's not something I was listening back at home, it's some sort of mixture of pop with other influences more technical than actually, musically. And then I was really into many indie bands from the 90s, a lot of Scottish band, which is the main reason why I end up going to Scotland, from this Mary Chain to Bell and Sebastian, Camera Obscura, The Wake, so many. BMX Bandit, there are so many good bands. Scotland is a really good country for music, I would say. It still is, but in the 90s, I thought it was the best place. A combination of things, but definitely I would say Scottish, British music has been the biggest influence for me, and also some Spanish music perhaps. But yeah, sometimes I don't think I even know where things come from, but it's just a confluence of different musical styles perhaps.
It is amazing, I think, over certain periods, and I think perhaps folk in Scotland don't realise it, but Scottish pop music in particular has really travelled and has had influence across. I remember being in Tower Records in Bangkok in the mid-90s, and the band Whiteout were number 7 in the charts, and you think, well, how's that happened? Yeah, but it was them. And there was lots of bands like that who would, Bell and Sebastian being a good example, who were kind of big in Japan, as people used to say. And Andrew, just thinking about your songs, because some of those bands we mentioned, particularly, again, Bell and Sebastian, the Smiths, but also Camera Obscura, often the kind of indie pop, Django pop, if you like, of the music, kind of disguises some pretty dark lyrics going on. And that's definitely the case with some of your songs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and maybe even say that we don't disguise it as much as some bands. We're quite out in the open with our lyrics, but Scottish bands have influenced me. I was even thinking as Miguel was speaking, now we've been around for a while, we could probably go back to saying that some of the bands that we even play with these days influenced us as well. And one that I would like to mention is the Just Jones. We're playing with them in November.
Oh, brilliant.
And I would like to think that they might say something similar, but they've definitely influenced us over the past decade. But yeah, you can go through a lot of different influences.
I was going to ask
joined them for a while, remember?
Sorry, what did you say, Kevin?
I was saying I even joined the Just Jones for a while.
Well, still gigging. I've seen them a couple of times in the last few years. Still going strong. But I was going to ask about contemporaries of yours at the time. Are there others that you would think about when you look back on that period?
Yeah, well, I got back. One band we all liked a lot was Cats on Fire. They were Finnish. And we played with them at the Indie Tracks Festival one year, and they were brilliant. I would say they're quite a lot, aren't there, guys? I mean,
I think most of them are no more. So I think the Just Jones are one of the few that are still there, like us.
I really liked Maya Bean and the Asthmatic Scene. Remember them?
That was another Glasgow band.
Yeah, we played with them a few times. Yeah,
the second-hand marching band,
the Electric Pop Group, another Swedish band.
Yeah.
In terms of Scottish bands, Wake the President they helped us and we helped them a lot. So Eric and Bjorn, Wake the President, and their label Say Dirty Records. They were sort of the contemporaries.
Well, we're going to hear another track in a moment, Garden of Roses. If we had longer, I would love to get into a deep discussion about Dear Morrissey, because I think that's a radio interview all of its own, no doubt about it. Have you got any dates for playing live yet that you can share with us?
Yeah, I got them wrong last time I tried to say what they were, didn't I? When's London, McGrath?
8th of November.
8th of November, yeah. And that's at the Betsy Trotwood in London with the understudies. We've even got Pete Paphides, the journalist, DJing as well. Yeah. And then the second one that we're playing is in Glasgow at the Glasgow University Union on the 22nd of November. That's with the Just Jones. So we're both looking forward to both a lot.
Oh, brilliant. I bet these songs are just fantastic live. And we should let people know where they can get the album from, because after this chat, I'm sure many will want to do just that.
Well, the first place you can get it is if you're wanting to order it online, you can get it from the Unspun Heroes Bandcamp page. You find links to it on our Bandcamp page too. And it's also going to be in record shops like Mono in Glasgow. So all good record shops. Have a good look and you'll find it, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me. All the very best with the album and when you play live as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
so much.
And this is the Felt Tips and Garden of Roses.